Since time immemorial, people have wondered where they come from, where they're going, and who they are. Humankind has reinvented the world again and again, always believing in the possibility of a better future. 500 years ago, Martin Luther started the Reformation, transforming the way people worshipped and thought. Today, we're standing at another crossroads.
Die Welt ist nicht klar.
There's no clarity in the world. We need to accept there's more than one path, more than one truth.
What is progress? Is the fact that technology defines our daily lives a positive development? We call it progress, but whether that's positive is a different matter.
Europeans have their own perspective. They think everything needs to be defined. There are norms, and they're obvious. There's only one truth. But I believe it's good when things aren't black and white. Clarity doesn't exist.
What is truth in this day and age? Martin Luther sought truth in the Bible. He swore by the Word of God and fought evil with it. 500 years later, we live in a digital world. We're constantly bombarded with words and images. We all need to filter out our own version of truth from this flood of information. But to do so, we need a value system. We have more information at our fingertips than ever before. But are we less afraid of the unknown than ever before? Humankind has always sought to find the meaning of life. Clashing truths are inevitable. But before we can decide what we believe in, we need to know the facts. Online journalist Paulina Tillmann sees fact-gathering as part of her job.
Stagnation is death. It's human nature to want progress. I believe it's important for society not to stagnate. It has to keep moving forward and continually reinvent itself.
In the early 17th century, 100 years after Luther proposed his 95 Theses, Europe witnessed what is known as the Little Ice Age. Hunger and disease were rampant. People feared the world was ending. They looked for someone to blame. Despite the lessons of the Reformation, they once again began accusing women, and men too, of witchcraft, of worshiping the devil, and seeking to destroy the world. Many despaired of earthly existence and wondered if a better life might be found elsewhere in the universe. Searching for evidence of a divine order, astronomers began to measure the skies. New discoveries could lead to new truths and new hope.
I do think there is such a thing as objective knowledge. I wouldn't quite so far as to say guarantees the truth, not automatically. But I do think that we can know and that we can make errors, but that we have the means of correcting those errors. And that it's not an easy process, that it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of thought over a long period of time. But the world isn't a subjective flux of nonsense. We can make sense of the world.
Anna Veltmans was a shopkeeper from Lemgo. In 1654, she was accused of witchcraft and fled her home.
I didn't poison my husband. I did not lie with Satan. They will never find me.
Anna Veltmans sought refuge with relatives in Bremen, but ultimately, she wasn't able to escape her tormentors. The Malleus Maleficarum, or Hammer of Witches, was a treatise on witchcraft first published in Speyer in 1486. The 30 Years' War was soul-destroying. Women across the country were burnt at the stake. It was a throwback to Luther's day, when women were blamed for everything that was wrong in the world. They were seen as weak and susceptible to devilry.
The devil sought to seize control of the world and sent out an army of agents to destroy God's creation. With hailstorms and poor harvests, with cattle dying in the stable, with babies stillborn.
Concerned? Do they take precautions? Is there normally any concern? What are people using?
Who knows the truth? Traditional media are being nudged aside by new digital players. These days, everyone has a platform. Paulina Tillmann used crowdfunding to set up an online magazine.
We founded our digital magazine called Your Correspondent to raise the profile of women. We want to increase the visibility of female reporters, ones that no one knows about because they're not on the evening news every day. Freelance reporters like myself, who have been experts on a region for 10 or 12 years, but behind the scenes, as it were, because they're working in radio and print. And we also want to tell the stories about strong women all over the world.
Ich bin Pauline Tillmann, ich bin die Chefredakteurin von deiner Korrespondentin. Genau.
Paulina is reporter and producer in one. She doesn't have an editor telling her what to do. She and her husband live on Lake Constance in southern Germany.
It's very important to challenge our users, which is why I think it's good to cover controversial topics, difficult topics, supposedly difficult ones. We can find ways to tell users these stories, ways that users appreciate.
The first newspaper was published in 1605 in the free imperial city of Strasbourg. Every week, couriers on horseback would bring bulletins from Augsburg, which at the time was Germany's news hub. Rather than listening to sermons, a growing number of people had begun relying on their own judgment and listening to their own inner voice. They began to leave behind the ideas of Luther's era. The astronomical clock, a mechanical masterpiece, gave humankind a sense of its place in the universe. Johann Carolus was a young printer and bookbinder who lived in Strasbourg. Like many others, he subscribed to the weekly news bulletin from Augsburg.
I hope there's no bad news.
He hit upon an ambitious plan to take the handwritten reports with news from across Imperial Germany and produce a news sheet that he then printed and sold for an affordable price.
Today, we know that the ability of any centralized authority to control knowledge, to prevent people from learning what they want to learn, is dramatically diminished. Even in some of the most authoritarian societies, they've come to understand that you can't really control knowledge. You can frighten people into not talking about certain things, but they will know.
400 years ago, the age of European exploration was still beginning. Australia, large swathes of Africa, and the South Pole were terra incognita, unknown land. Astronomer Johannes Kepler began remapping the skies. He believed that God had a divine plan for the universe, one that could be demonstrated with the help of earthly knowledge. Unlike Martin Luther, he did not rely simply on the Bible, the Word of God. And he wondered if perhaps one day man might even venture into the skies.
Man has made ships and sails that could take him to the heavens. There might one day be people who are not afraid of the barren expanse of the cosmos and will travel to the stars.
Kepler was clearly one step ahead of Luther. He hadn't let go of the old ways of thinking, the traditions of Luther. But at the same time, he was striding towards a future in which people thought and acted very differently.
What is the meaning of creation? Where does the world come from?
It seems everyone is seeking an answer to this question. There's a universal need to know why we exist, how the world we live in was made.
Die Welt, in der wir leben, wie ist das alles entstanden?
The other question is, what will happen in the future? What is mankind doing to its environment? What is the trajectory of our society? These are the two main focuses of science.
But can science really provide answers to the important questions? Can everything be boiled down to facts and statistics? Astrophysicist Carolina Dorn researches the outer reaches of the universe. Based at the Space Research Center at the University of Bern, she studies exoplanets, planets that orbit a star other than our Sun.
The focus of my research is to establish whether there are other habitable planets in the universe. That's the ultimate question I'm looking to answer.
Stargazing is one way of unlocking the secrets of the universe. Kepler's vision was badly impaired, but he didn't let that stop him.
My poor eyesight makes me unsuited to astronomy. But every night outside proves that Copernicus was right. The moon is further proof. Mathematical equations aside, this is reality.
Kepler suspected that the Earth was only a speck of a planet in the greater scheme of things. In 1965, the Soviets launched the Voskhod 2. Cosmonaut Alexei Leonov conducted the world's very first spacewalk.
I've been fascinated by the cosmos ever since Gagarin first went into space. I learnt about Kepler in school. So far, we've only explored a fraction of space. These days, we're contemplating traveling to Mars and other planets. But the laws of outer space are unsuited to our lives here on planet Earth.
In the old Hanseatic city of Lemgo, Anna Veltmans discovered that even though the 30 Years' War was over, it had left its mark. After the death of her husband, Anna took over his linen business.
I advance the linen weavers their flaxseed. They give me the right of first refusal and they get a steady wage. The war was long and terrible. They can pay off their debts. It's my Christian duty.
Anna Veltmans was charged with witchcraft. She was able to buy her freedom for 2,000 thalers. But she continued to be regularly interrogated at the town hall.
They'll accuse me again. The widow Veltmans is practicing witchcraft.
count about 6 or 7 from what I've seen so far.
Even today, female entrepreneurs are given a rough ride.
You need to be very disciplined to found a business and make it a success. You have to work incredibly hard, and initially you don't get much back. You have to know why you're doing it. You need a vision, faith. That's what gives you the drive to carry on.
Journalism is a fast-changing industry.
I mean, thousands of people on both sides.
In today's multimedia world, how can you make yourself heard? And how can you get people to pay for information when they can access it online for free? Professional journalists gather facts, check sources, join the dots, all in pursuit of the truth. In Strasbourg, Johann Carolus had run into serious debt when he bought a printing workshop. Desperately looking for a source of income, he hit upon the idea of a printed news sheet. He called the newspaper Relation. By the 12th edition, it had won over a number of subscribers. In order to protect his business against competition, Carolus applied to the city council for an exclusive right to print news sheets. This was the pre-copyright era. His request was turned down.
It will be the ruin of me. It was my idea. But now everyone will be able to print my news. They'll be astonished by the rowdy filth about to be unleashed.
Throughout history, people have risen to new challenges and come up with brilliant ideas. They've been misunderstood and risked their livelihoods, never knowing whether they would fail or succeed.
There is always evolution in the sense of adaptation, because conditions are constantly changing. It's the same with scientific research. You have an idea and you start to explore it, but at some point you might start to realize that your idea doesn't add up.
Irgendwann erkennt man vielleicht, dass dieses Konzept, was man im Kopf hatte, gar nicht aufgeht.
Physicist Carolina Dorn also uses math and intuition in her quest to find out if and where there could be other life forms.
I
could identify with a degree of probability whether a planet has water in liquid form. If so, that planet could have the basis for life.
Gibt's aber noch, für die Planeten, die ganz nah am Stern sind, gibt es ja auch noch non-thermal mass loss, einfach durch so particle wind.
Carolina is one of just 2 female scientists in the world specialized in the field of exoplanets. There's very little data on distant galaxies.
Was ich habe von diesen Exoplaneten,
all I know about these exoplanets are their mass and radius.
Das ist das Einzige,
That's pretty much it.
Mehr oder weniger
So what I do is to attempt to recreate models of these planets using various materials. I recreate a system of planets that could have precisely these masses and radiuses.
Diese Masse und diesen Radius haben können.
Today I uncovered your secret, your geometrical plan for the universe. The truth is hidden in these 5 shapes, the Platonic solids. Now look, if I place them within the orbits of the 6 planets circling the Sun, the source of life and light, then the divine plan becomes evident.
Ist das göttliche Gesetz klar.
For his 1596 doctoral thesis entitled Mysterium Cosmographicum, Kepler developed a model of planetary orbits based on the 5 Platonic solids. This allowed him to calculate the orbits of the 6 known planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, and distance relationships between them. He dedicated his finding to God, creator of the universe.
You created me a weak man, but you allowed me to find the door to your creative spirit.
Centuries later, Kepler's calculations would become the foundation of modern space travel. Kepler was the first to identify how the planets orbit the Sun. The Church remained adamant that the Sun circled the Earth. Several decades after Copernicus had discovered the heliocentric system, Kepler's 3 laws took mankind's understanding of the universe to another level.
Copernicus is the first revolution because he moved ourselves from the centrality of the universe. All of a sudden, we realized that we were not so important, that we were not at the center of the whole universe looking at us, but in fact, we are on this small planet in the middle of nowhere. And that forced us to readdress our importance. So we had to readdress our exceptional nature. Then the exceptional nature became, okay, just on Earth, we are exceptional because we are the special animals. But then Darwin came and pushed us further and says, well, sorry, but you're not so special either. You're just part of the animal kingdom.
Does exploring space bring us further away from God or closer to Him? Is planet Earth unique? What would happen if we really did discover life on other planets?
A planet
is habitable if it could have liquid water flowing for a significant period of time on its surface. But that's based on our model, our definition of life. In fact, there is no clear definition distinguishing life from non-life. So even here on Earth, we're faced with the question, what is life in the first place?
The European Space Agency's Cheops mission uses a space telescope to gather data on some 500 planets.
Das ist, glaube ich, auch so das Spannende an diesem.
That's what makes this subject so exciting. We're talking about many different dimensions. We have to look at the interplay between atoms and how it affects the structure of planets.
Wie hat das Einfluss auf eine Struktur von einem Planeten? Es gibt so ein paar
A few principles recur in the universe. Symmetry and chaos, for example.
Sowas vielleicht wie Symmetrie und Chaos.
Turbulent times for Johann Carolus. The first newspaper war erupted in Strasbourg around 1610. Thanks to book printing, a growing number of people were starting to read. The press was free, so long as it steered clear of politics. It was at liberty to publish any old nonsense, from tales of two-headed monsters to supposed miracles and new religious sects. It wasn't intended for the high-minded, but for the man on the street.
My esteemed and educated readers should read in print of the most distinguished and notable events occurring in Germany, France, Italy, England and Spain.
Carolus was horrified by the public's appetite for sensationalism. He wanted to educate them, provide them with news that made them think.
Without a doubt, there was change afoot in the 17th century. It continued into the 18th century. Political freedom went hand in hand with new ideas. The right to freedom of conscience, which is a form of inwardness. And this was transferred from the religious to the political realm.
Documents on the trial of Anna Veltmans can be found in the Lemgo city archives. The investigation on accusations of witchcraft lasted 10 years. Was she persecuted because she was a successful and independent businesswoman? Anna loaned money to poor weavers and refused to join the Merchants' Guild.
Am I to support lazy merchants with my own money and no longer decide myself how much to pay linen weavers for their wares? I will not.
Anna also loaned money to merchants in Lemgo who refused to pay her back.
Do not worry, mistress.
Wealthy merchants want to ruin my business. Driven by envy and greed, they want to forbid me helping people.
I think kindness is the most important thing we're going to have to hang on to if the world comes tumbling down. I think what breaks movements and what breaks communities is cruelty and bullying and meanness and people putting themselves always first and just being vicious to each other.
Johann Carolus understood that the worst disasters are always man-made.
War and peace are inextricably linked. The news from around the world is not good. Everywhere the devout are braying from the pulpit, whether they are Reformist or early church. My town is no exception.
On the eve of the 30 Years' War, Carolus realized that conflict between rival religious confessions on German territory was inevitable, and that it had the potential to devastate Europe. In 1617, a pamphlet marking the 100th anniversary of the Reformation featured a picture of Luther penning his 95 Theses with an enormous quill and sticking it into the Pope's ear. Luther had been dead for more than 70 years.
The War of Words began long before war broke out on the battlefields. Decades passed before this conflict, which began in 1618, finally ended. Both sides were completely debilitated.
Paulina Tillmann is visiting Odessa to report on Russia's annexation of Crimea. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine has become the new focus of her work. She conducts many interviews, such as these with Ukrainian women who have volunteered to look after wounded soldiers. She posts the interviews online.
The way news is reported is so superficial. You consume it and never think about it again. At Your Correspondent, we try to follow up on stories we consider important.
Paulina witnesses the fighting from the sidelines, but she sees enough to realize the soul-destroying effects of war.
Here in Germany, we witness war on a daily basis. The world has long grown tired of religious feuding. were someone to appear who knew how two parties with different creeds could come to love one another as brothers. This person would be seen as an oddity. But he would be doing the world a great favor.
Aber würde der Welt vermutlich gut tun.
Kepler wanted to see reconciliation between rival religious confessions. Because of his belief in religious tolerance, he was excluded from Holy Communion and treated like a heretic.
It's a question of faith, how powerless you feel. Is there a superior power? Some people, when they contemplate the heavens, the universe, they're overcome by a sense of powerlessness. But the minute you feel powerless, you imbue something else with power. And usually, that's faith.
I am an atheist. I just can't imagine a God. I can't even picture what form something that would give meaning to everything would take.
Sinneinflößend wäre oder so.
Can there be truth without God? One based on empirical human experience? After the death of astronomer Tycho Brahe, Kepler took over as royal mathematician in Prague in 1601. But he was suffering from a creative crisis. His calculations of planetary orbits using his predecessor's system were not adding up. Kepler had moved to Prague with his wife and children, hoping to secure a family allowance.
Children, come here.
The stories, the theories that scientists come up with have so much to do with the power of imagination. What makes them so fascinating is that you start off with an idea and a hunch that things must be connected in some way or another.
Seit Ptolemäus entspricht nur die
Since Ptolemy, man has believed that celestial bodies are perfect spheres, traveling in perfect circles. Let us now circle the planets around the Sun. Look how the movement is circular.
Seht ihr? Wir gehen alle in einer Kreisbewegung weiter.
Those aren't circles. Anna, complete the circle. Wait, children. That's not a circle. You've drawn an ellipse. Anna, that's it.
Das ist es.
The world is about to change. The planets all follow an elliptical orbit, not a circle. I will call this Kepler's first law.
Without Kepler's laws of planetary motion, there would be no way to navigate in outer space. Without a coordinated universal time system, there would be no modern navigation on Earth and at sea, nor online data traffic. Time is what a clock reads. The history of the clock's power over mankind begins in Europe, shortly after the Reformation. Shown first in hours and later in minutes, mechanical clocks on church towers and town halls displayed the time for all to see.
The digitalization of the world is a major new departure. In the past, there were certain things that simply couldn't be calculated because you had to work out every single step, cell by cell. Now we just let computers do it all. It solves those large problems, problems that couldn't be solved in normal human time. So I think science has sped up too.
Und damit, glaube ich, gibt es auch eine Beschleunigung in der Wissenschaft.
Are we developing a different sense of time? Real-time communication has led to an accelerated world. Everything is available anywhere, at any time.
Roughly 300 kilometers.
Like the clock, the newspaper changed the world. The news published by Johann Carolus in Strasbourg posed a threat to power. Once again, his livelihood was threatened.
Everything is black and white, day and night, north and south. But joy and sadness are not black and white. They're inextricably linked.
What happened? Carolus had published a story from the imperial court in Prague. A Turkish legation had desecrated churches, and the emperor was unable to expel the heretics because he could not afford to deport them. The emperor was poor? An outrageous statement. After 3 years, the weekly newspaper Relation was banned.
Sometimes we need to put our foot down when we notice a development isn't making the world or society a better place. We have to say no.
Anna Veltmans, whose father was a Protestant pastor in Lemgo, sought refuge and comfort in the Church of St. Mary's. But the church failed to offer sanctuary and protect her. According to the Constitutio Criminalis Carolina, the first body of German criminal law enacted in 1532, torture could be used to obtain confessions. And under torture, Anna Veltmans finally confessed.
I'm so tired of life. Yes, my wages are paid by Satan himself. Because I am his whore.
What is truth even worth when people use lies to justify murder? Paulina is reporting from Ukraine. She wants to get a sense of what's happening there so she can inform others.
Ich kann nicht sagen, dass ich Vorbilder habe. Jetzt gibt es viele.
I wouldn't say I have any role models. So many people put their careers first. Those people aren't necessarily role models. I wouldn't say I have any. My mother, maybe. She was a very strong person. She did her own thing, despite many obstacles.
You know, maybe the road to revolution will be built by mums. Maybe mums are the answer. And I think, I don't know, people are saying, oh, you know, women can't be in positions of power as much because they have families to look after. And that is exactly why more women should be in positions of power, because only people who have been socialized or, you know, learned to manage a family in that way or manage a large group of people in that way can possibly take us through the coming crisis.
The court gave Anna Veltmans short shrift. By this point, she was beyond anyone's help.
The verdict was that I am an enemy of the common good. My sentence is to burn at the stake. Mercifully, they have allowed me to buy a sword with my money, so I will not have to face the flames.
The story of a woman who 350 years ago dedicated herself to God, charity, and truth.
I'd say my view of humanity is neither positive nor negative. I wouldn't say mankind or society is inherently good or bad. What drives us? The pursuit of happiness, perhaps.
Am Ende wollen wir irgendwie glücklich sein. So.
Mich treibt an, dass ich das Leben auf diesem
What drives me is my sense that life on this planet is very, very precious. I see life as an extraordinary gift, and it would be foolish not to make the most of it.
Das Beste draus zu machen.
Even if the world ends, I will persevere in my quest for truth.